You're listening to the I Love You Keep Going podcast with George Haas. For more information, please visit our website at www.mettagroup.org. That's www.mettagroup.org.
So welcome everybody. This is I Love You Keep Going. It is Thursday, October 9th, 2025 at 7:35 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And I thought that I would talk about uh, getting your needs met. How does different attachment strategies navigate getting their needs met? It's one of the interesting things to pay attention to because it's like a tell for what somebody's attachment strategy is. If you're wondering what happens, because the the way that you do it is so revealing of that conditioning. Um, in some sense, that very early conditioning that we experience that forms the attachment strategy is where we learn to do it. We essentially just uh, uh, watch as children the way that adults navigate relationships, and we learn the skill set that is presented to us, and then we attempt to develop over time our ability to do that. Of course, we are in that early period of learning before autobiographical memory begins, before the sense of self, that referential experience of self begins. And then in childhood, we don't really have much of a capacity to reflect on the strategies that we use to form relationships with there. We're already engaging in that. By the time we do get that reflective quality, really, which happens in adolescence, not only have we watched the skill set of relationship in our family systems, but we've actually developed the capacity to do it and have a history of doing it. And most of the time, we don't really reflect on it too much because it is the way that it's always appeared to us. If you remember the Zen story of the koi fish in the pond, the abbot of the monastery walks down to the edge of the pond and looks in the water and throws some fish food in, and the koi swim over. And as the abbot is looking down at them, he says, "How's the water today?" And one koi looks at another koi and says, "What's water?" So when we're so accustomed to being in this milieu of the way that relationships operate and so used to the way that people respond, we don't even really question it. It isn't until we go out into the world and we attempt to form a relationship, and when the sex drive really kicks in and we're looking for that uh, sexual gratification in relationship, in being able to navigate closeness to another body so that we can have those experiences, that it really becomes apparent what strategies are working and what strategies aren't working. But most of the time, we're just wandering around the planet looking for somebody who matches the way that we do it, right? We have that mechanism. I like to call it the glow. You walk into a room and some people light up like Christmas trees or uh, Hanukkah bushes, and you think, "Oh my God, they're so beautiful." And in that uninitiated state, you think everybody thinks that they're beautiful, and then you pursue them. Um, and the reason that they're glowing is that they're likely to use similar strategies to the strategies that you use, so that you can engage them in that whole relational dance. Whereas the people that aren't glowing, you've recognized is probably not going to be able to do that. And so you find the world reflecting back to you people who use similar strategies. So it can make sense to you that everybody does it in a way that's similar to the way that you're doing it, so that you're doing it the right way. Mudit?
Hi George.
Hi.
So the we're talking about needs. It's non-sexual attachment needs is what we are looking to meet,
Well, we could restrict it to that, certainly.
right? Because then the issue of egos, needs, or desires on the spiritual path, the emptiness of these needs are labeled in egos the needs as something that you're not supposed to pursue. There's no point. Versus attachment needs, which I think are slightly more wholesome than material needs.
Um, I probably, as a householder, would um, uh, take some umbrage with the characterization. Maybe as a monastic, that would be possible. But my experience of being around monastics is also not that. That within the monastic community, people form substantial relationships. There's often a celibacy requirement, depending on lineage. Theravada, certainly, maybe in the Zen tradition, not so much in the Tibetan tradition.
Yeah.
But I would also say of the Zen people I know, the monastic piece was not so prominent in the way that they lived their lives. Uh, uh, and I never was close enough to the monastics in the Theravada world to be able to examine that one way or the other. But I did notice very strong attachments, uh, uh, intimate contact, and a relating over a long period of time in relationship. Um, I don't think that there's a way to practice your way out of attachment needs. And I think really what I meant in the topic was how different attachment strategies navigate the full range of needs rather than navigating your way out of the needs. I do think that there is in the lay community a kind of romantic notion that you can practice your way out of actually having these needs. In some sense, a lot of us, particularly those of us who have fairly significant attachment difficulties, uh, come to the practice with the idea that we can practice our way out of ever needing anyone, ever having to depend on anyone. But that isn't the biology, I don't think, of the human body, which is designed to be in a complex social network. We're pack animals. We live in social hierarchies. That's how we're set up. I noticed when I was teaching early on that people would come in and want that. They wanted an extreme form of self-sufficiency, an extreme form of independence. And it was always the metaphor of the cave, where we could be the cave monastics, where we practice enough that we can live on the air in the cave. We don't even need food or water. So when I was in Myanmar, I thought that I would go to the cave monasteries and see how they were actually doing it, to see if there was some validity to this idea. And I went to one in, I went to several, but this one particular one that I'm thinking of, it was a monastery that had 110 monks in the whole monastery, but only 6 people living in a cave. And the whole monastery was set up so that the 6 people who were in the cave could live in the cave. Now, what do you think a cave looks like? Which I thought, so in my mind, I thought, oh, it's going to be this natural occurring cave. But actually, what this was a cave that was dug into the side of a mountain entirely man-made, and it was fairly cavernous. But when you went inside, it was fully furnished. There were rooms with doors, and there were beds and tables and chairs, and there was a living room that had a television in it. This was not at all what my uh, idea of a cave was. And they did stay in there for long periods of time, years, in fact. They stayed in the cave practicing, and they had the community within the cave. And then they had this entire support from the monastics living outside of the cave. So it gave me a better sense of that. I think that the practice, as you engage in the practice, is one of full engagement, not a practice of detachment, not that to see the emptiness and the true nature of it would mean that you are free to engage completely and then not suffer at the loss of the connection, not cling, not grasp on to the loss of the connection or the separation, not activate the abandonment, terror that arises when you find yourself alone, or the abandonment terror that arises when you attempt to be authentic in the expression of who you are to someone else, that you can be fully authentic. Now, in the monastic community, those relationships are all transactional and it's all hierarchical, and there's a formal relationship that everybody has with everyone else, and it's rigid in that sense. But at the same time, I think there's connection. I noticed it also in the community of nuns, how uh, uh, you could see so easily in the face of the people the delight and the sense of uh, uh, joy at the closeness when old friends encountered each other. Of course, in the monastic community, you move as you were instructed to, rather than making those kinds of choices. Is that making sense?
Yeah, I realize that this is a much larger discussion.
Yeah.
And also, I don't like the whole monks' caves examples that everybody uses, because it's so subjective from our point of view, as if that is the extreme.
Right.
Maybe the monks in the cave is the middle point, and we are the extremes. Nobody thought of that, but I don't like the monks. Everybody uses that inference. And then secondly, the glow phase. Like imagine if I do go into a room and I do see people glowing, but that is a mostly, let's say, beauty. That is conditioned. So is that something I'm pursuing, or am I refraining from pursuing? Because I think it's just a glow coming out of my conditioned mind, let's say,
Right.
which
Well, I
pursues,
think it is, right?
yeah, which pursues beauty only. So should I pursue it or should I refrain from it?
Um, what is it that you want from it?
I don't know, possession or some form of,
Well, so that then is the root of grasping, right? root of
Closeness.
So the movement into closeness, into complete closeness, complete connection, and then complete separation without grasping, so that you can come and go from the connection without the sense of loss, the sense of suffering, the sense of fear that might come up, the sense of jealousy if somebody else is able to be close. As householders, of course, we can make commitments to people. What kind of commitment do you want? What kind of commitment is necessary to support your capacity to explore? I think is another way to look at it. If we're really talking about it in terms of attachment, what we're talking about is developing a social safety net so that you're free to take risks in your exploration and not put yourself in a position where you risk such emotional dysregulation that you can't you can't regulate yourself, or you don't have people available to who can regulate you. The solution that almost everybody takes is to then begin to limit the risk taking, so that you're not in such a discombobulated state. And it's easy enough to get into a place where your willingness to take risks is so restricted that you don't find enough meaning to animate life. So how do you do that? Christian?
George, when you lose someone in some capacity, how does Buddhism distinguish between maybe what I would think is a normal grieving process and like the suffering?
A failure to grieve, I guess, is what we would call it. A failure to mourn. The way that, we live in a body, and bodies grow attachments. It's a thing that happens in the brain. If you have somebody that you're close to, and you're close to them over a period of time, part of the process of making reality, the object that can be sensed has contact with the capacity to sense, consciousness arises. It's tracked for Vedana, the body does that mainly. It's compared to the perceptual database, and if there's a meaning that's close enough, that whole thread of meaning attaches, which includes the intention for an action you might take in response to the meaning that you've created, and then the gathering of that outcome from the action that you take. All of that is included in the process of making reality, but also included in that is, who would I share this experience with? Who would I express it to? And the longer you know somebody, the more intimate those connections are, the more the mind begins to associate different kinds of experience with specific people to express your discoveries, the process of your exploration. And when you lose somebody, you don't immediately lose those structures in the brain that point you toward them. And so they're lost to you. And so the way that the brain copes with that is by popping sadness. And when you've known somebody for a long time and you've had a lot of connection to them, it's that little pop of sadness accumulates, and it's like this wave of sorrow that overtakes you because of the loss. And then what we do in the process of grieving is simply to take the experience of that sadness and use it as an energy to connect to someone else. And the way that we do that is not by sharing the sense of the sadness of the loss, but sharing the experience that you would have shared with the person who's lost with someone else. And then the mind begins to reorder with the new person as the person you share that kind of experience to. Is that making sense?
I think so.
Now, in that process, when the loss is significant and the intensity of the sadness is overwhelming, we create a cognitive buffer, which I like to call "if only." If only that didn't happen. If only I could have done something. If only this had happened instead. If only, if only, if only. And that's like a buffer, so that in Buddhism, we begin immediately, just moving uh, the connection that's lost to someone else. You, of course, don't have to keep the bundle. You can break it up and distribute it widely. And you express the sadness freely. And over a period of time, there's a shift, and then you stop thinking about whoever it is that's been lost. This is a sticking point sometimes in the West because we want to preserve the memory of that person. We don't want to forget them, but in a Buddhist philosophy, we would not hold on at all. We would just let them come and go. And then when we've sufficiently exercised that, when something happens, we don't think of the lost person, we think of the new person, and then the process of grief is resolved.
Okay. Is that how do I put this? Buddhism is embedded in so many different cultures, and a lot of cultures have their own kind of grieving rituals. Is
Right.
that is that like, I don't know if there's a sort of Platonic grieving Buddhism, or if it's kind of left up to the particular culture you're in. Like we have in the West, we have different, I mean, maybe the West has a weird kind of mishmash of grieving or non-grieving practices.
Well, again, you learn the grieving processes that you have in your family. In my family, when my brother died, within a few days, uh, all of his possessions were given away and the decor in his bedroom was changed. So, it, uh, and in our family, all of that is done by the women who come to support my mother, and the mission is to have it completely done by the time they're going to leave, so that she won't have to do any of it. I don't know where that comes from, because but my grandmother organized it, and it was done fast. I mean, it was too fast for me.
Mm.
But all of the women knew that it had to be done, so it was part of a tradition in our family. That makes sense.
Okay. So it sounds like the sort of broader measure would be whether you're inhibited in forming connections with other people. That would be a sign that you're trapped in the suffering and not in the kind of normal-ish grieving process.
Well, you can hold the grief in that buffer, if only, for as long as uh, the rest of your life, if you wanted to.
But that if only is, do you see that as a kind of Western formulation, or do you see that as a universal formulation?
I don't. Different traditions have different ways of doing it. I'm quite familiar with the Jewish traditions, and have participated in that, and it's pretty structured. So I think that we learn from observing what happens to us, how different family systems do it, and what we would consider normal. A normal grieving process would be if it went along with that conditioned experience of it, and then prolonged if it or a failure to grieve or a failure to mourn. My mother never recovered from it, so I also know what that's like. She never really left the house after that much. So, but in Western psychology, we would say that if the mourning is the dominant experience that you're having after a year, that the mourning has failed. But in the attachment work, of course, there's tons of it. It comes up all of the time in the different measures. And Carol George, who writes about it quite a bit, the failed mourning. After a year, maybe two, I don't know, it depends how close someone is to you and how much connection you have. Imagine a parent losing a child. The breadth of that connection would be astonishing.
When my dad died, we had the ashes. I had the ashes for a while, and then my mom was like, "All right, we need to spread these ashes," and she just kind of like, I went over and took the ashes, and she just kind of like took the ashes, and we went to the bed. Sorry, it's a funny story. She just kind of threw the ashes in the corner of the backyard, and it was like very abrupt, and I was like, well, I guess that was spreading the ashes, and like, I think she had done her mourning years before, perhaps. But
How long did she keep them?
Oh, she didn't keep them at all. She was like, all right, we got to do something with these ashes.
Oh.
I was keeping them. I was keeping them. And I was like, let's do something really formal and nice. And then she just kind of like tossed them in the corner. And it appealed to my sense of absurdity. I found other ways to mourn a little more personally.
Because one of my friends got a nice urn. It looks like a clock, one of those old English clocks in a wooden case, and it's on the mantle. And it's been there for 25 years. So we don't cremate in my family so far. But I do have in my will that I'm going to be composted, and that I have a list of people that are going to receive a little bag of dirt that says, "For George, plant a seed." I don't know. It's an interesting thing to contemplate death. I don't know how we got so heavily onto this topic, considering we're talking about navigating attachment needs, or navigating needs with your considering what your attachment strategy is. But it is an interesting thing to keep in mind, because it is a temporary expression, the current one that you're in, and it will come and go with astonishing rapidity. So the idea is to fully engage. That what I would recommend. Engage, and the way that I think that can be expressed is by really attempting to do your very best in every moment, in everything that you do, your very best. It's an interesting exercise because it will point out to you where you're inhibited in your exploration. Because if you can't do your very best, it's a defensive response. And what is the origin of that defense? It's really going to boil down in some way to protecting yourself from being abandoned. And then we're right back into the attachment conditioning and how you experience that. But to keep with the topic, secure people tend to be able to express themselves authentically. They tend to be able to understand what their needs are and to make the request for the people in their lives to be able to meet those needs. And then they tend to be able to receive those expressions of care in a collaborative and intimate way. So there's a back and forth in those kinds of relationships. When you move out from secure people to dismissing people, and I'm mainly talking about adults here, it's transactional. And so there's an offering of engagement, really. And in exchange for that engagement, the other person reciprocates by meeting the needs of the dismissing person. Dismissing people typically don't reciprocate care, they reciprocate stuff, or they reciprocate idealization. Idealization is a presentation which elicits a strong emotional response in someone else. And if you encounter a skilled dismissing person, their capacity to produce intoxicating emotional states is usually pretty well developed. And so what you find is that when they engage you and they're attempting to idealize you, it's an intoxicating experience, which is very pleasurable. That's the draw. So they offer that. Would it?
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. You mean through compliments?
Well, really what they do is they elicit from you the thing that if it was offered to you in an idealized fashion would be intoxicating.
As an
So
example.
there's a full range of it. I have a great example, but I don't want to share it. So I
Do
have
it.
to think of something else.
No names. Do it.
Well, I can use my generic form. It's usually about being noticed in a way that is meaningful to you. Let's say there was something about you that no one has ever noticed, that nobody's ever commented on, that you've been longing for somebody to see and recognize about you. And the dismissing person says to you that you have this thing that they find so remarkable, so beautiful, so interesting. And you literally have the experience that you've waited your entire life for somebody to say that to you. And you haven't told them, at least so that you think, and so that you believe that they must really see you, they must really know you, they must really value you. And it's completely intoxicating. But what you didn't notice was that the very skillful dismissing person elicited from you all of the things that they then fed back to you in an idealized way.
George, a woman once told me 18 years ago that I had a sexy voice, and I've been riding that high ever since.
She wasn't lying.
All right, 18 more.
So mostly through compliments.
Well, not a simple compliment
Right.
in the sense, oh, you have a nice shirt, I really like it, or great haircut. It's something that matters to you, which they've been able to elicit from you without you registering that they've elicited it from you. And then they amplify it.
And also they don't mean it because they're manipulating.
Well, there's this is the thing about this. They mean it in the sense that they want it to have this intoxicating effect. And they pride themselves on being good at it. That is to say, I can intoxicate you. and I'm good at it. And because I'm good at intoxicating you, you should give me the thing that I want. But they don't intend to follow through on a promise that they would make, because it's not about the promise that they're making, it's about the intoxicating effect that it has on you.
So
So
that
that
you can chase me.
Well, what they're coming forward and offering you these intoxicated, amplified expressions of interest and care. They're not actually offering you interest and care. That's what I think we need to grasp. They are offering you the intoxication of the promise of that. And to them, that's complete. They've never, in their mind, they've never offered you the care. They've never offered you the interest. They've offered you the intoxicating experience of somebody offering that to you. And they,
Through words.
what?
Through words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or gestures, or flowers, if that would be your thing, or whatever it is.
But then flowers would be actual care.
Right. And you might interpret that as actual care, but that's not how they're interpreting it. They're interpreting it as a prop that is giving you an intoxicated feeling so that they can then move on to the second part of this arrangement, which is where, as soon as they think that you're hooked on the intoxication, they begin to withdraw from you. You get hooked on the intoxication, they withdraw from you, and so you're actively pursuing them. So it flips, right? Now, the reason that they need you to pursue them is because that active motion toward them is the thing that relieves their abandonment anxiety. As long as you're pursuing them, they don't think that you'll abandon them. As long as they're pursuing you, they could be quite anxious about whether or not they're going to be able to hook you and flip the equation. But a lot of times the reaction is quite negative to the experience of that, because you think that when they don't deliver, that they're lying to you or they're manipulating you. But actually, that isn't how they experience it. They experience it as, I'm giving you this intoxicating experience. If that makes sense. And if you take the intoxicating experience in it, and if you're good at it, it's intoxicating. You have to pay for it. You have to give them what's been promised in their mind, or they withdraw the intoxication, right? Now, if you map that onto who tends to go for that kind of thing, it is a preoccupied person who goes for that kind of thing, because what they want is proximity, right? And the intoxication is amazing, and you don't mind trading care for that kind of experience. Organized, preoccupied people tend to present themselves as helpless, pretend to present themselves as helpless. So the reason why a dismissing person and a preoccupied person can relate and form fairly stable relationships that are long lasting in that dynamic is because the problems that they're presenting to the dismissing person to solve aren't real problems. So they don't need a real solution, so that when the dismissing person offers the intoxication but not an actual solution, there isn't a problem. Is that making sense? The preoccupied person offers a pretend problem for proximity to the dismissing person, and the dismissing person offers a pretend solution to the pretend problem. So the problem itself is not left unsolved because it was never something that needed to be solved. Makes sense? The preoccupied person, as long as they get the proximity that they need, and of course, because they're enmeshed and because they emotionally regulate the empathetic experience of the dismissing person, the dismissing person gets the emotional regulation that they need from the preoccupied person. And the preoccupied person, as long as they have proximity to the dismissing person, feels regulated. It's only when there's separate from the dismissing person that they feel dysregulated because they've lost the empathetic connection and they're back in their own emotional states, which they don't pay enough attention to and they don't regulate well enough. Is that making sense? But, the most common coupling is secure with secure because that goes together so well. And the second most common is dismissing with preoccupied. And some of those relationships, particularly on the organized side of things, are quite stable and quite long lasting. They're just not intimate, they're transactional. But, transactional works. Most of us who have employment of some kind are engaged in transactional relationships with our employers or with people that we employ. So it isn't an illegitimate way of being in relationship. It's a perfectly legitimate way of being in relationship. It is not, however, intimate. And if you were longing for intimacy in a relationship, you would have to move beyond a purely transactional way of relating. When we move across the trauma line into disorganized people, they're more relating in a trauma bonded way, which is not great. And that, you might say, is an illegitimate way of relating, although certainly based on conditioning in the sense that the disorganization and the dissociative states that come with that allow you to come in and out of any kind of shared reality. So it allows you to come in and out of perceiving the person as they are, and easy enough to perceive them as an avatar for somebody who was engaged to in some kind of traumatic relating. Is that making sense? The thing about disorganized people is that they're so unreliable because of the dissociative states they come and go from. They can't form a stable relationship. And so organized people don't really relate to them because of that. They're too unreliable. You can't count on them. And that creates too much anxiety, too much abandonment threat in organized people. So that disorganized people are mainly left to relate with other disorganized people who are also terribly unreliable, which you get a pass for in the disorganized community. I can't be reliable, so I can't hold against you the fact that you can't be reliable either. And so you have these moments of closeness, which are really sort of rushed and unstable, and then these moments of separation that come following the dysregulating experience of getting too close. Because disorganized people are so afraid of presenting themselves authentically, there's a lot of abruption that happens around feelings of being unseen or misunderstood that comes from the implicit nature of those kinds of communications. You never really say directly what's going on for you because it's too frightening to do that. It's too frightening to be authentic. But then when you're misunderstood or unseen because of the rather elaborate riddling that you do in order to protect yourself, it tends to cause these abruptions in relationships. So there's a coming and going. Disorganized people, because they're so afraid of the consequences of a relationship going badly. Um, that is to say, they're afraid actually that they'll be killed. Uh, Secure people feel confident that they'll be able to work out problems in the relationship. That's one of the hallmarks of them. They think that they can collaborate with their partner and creatively solve problems in the relationship and come up with a solution that is a win-win for both parties. Dismissing people are afraid that they'll be rejected and humiliated. Preoccupied people are afraid that they'll be abandoned, and disorganized people are afraid that they'll be killed. It's a whole level of fearfulness that is beyond what organized people experience. And so they hide in order to protect themselves. But in hiding, they also they often feel unseen. And that unseen quality is the thing that so enraging. Who did?
So the rejection still exists in secure, organized people. It's just that it's slightly more. And secondly, that they can talk with people afterwards that insecure people cannot, right?
Right.
That's the only difference. But they still struggle. They still have the feeling of rejection, and let's say,
Well, yeah, rejection leading to abandonment. Everybody is subject to abandonment fear. But you would be confident that uh, secure people don't think that the relationship itself is threatened. They think that there's a bump in the road and that they're confident that they can resolve it. But insecure people don't think that. The rejection and dismissing people is right to the core of abandonment. And they think that the relationships can be lost easily, where secure people don't really think that. It doesn't really occur to them that you could lose a relationship over something that wasn't really significant. Whereas insecure people would imagine that the relationship could be lost with something that wasn't particularly significant.
so you're saying the epistemal trust can be rebuilt in secure people, even after humiliation.
If there's something that actually rocks the epistemic trust, there the loss of confidence is pretty extreme. That they can't solve it, and that engage in a process of recovery of it. But the epistemic trust in insecure people is not very resilient, and it's already broken in disorganized people.
Do you know in an instant that there is no hope? Like I've had those moments where there is a moment where I know that there is no hope in recovery, but then maybe tomorrow I will feel the opposite, that I feel that it can be rebuilt. So I wasn't sure what.
It's when you lose hope and the hope doesn't come back that the relationship is essentially over.
Oh, it's like a permanent hope which is gone, like even
Yeah,
after a week later.
yeah. David?
You use the term afraid of being killed. Are they actually afraid of like being knifed or shot? Or are you talking about afraid of their soul being crushed as if it's killed?
No, literally physically killed. So the thing that causes that level of disorganized in children is being terrified. And usually it's terrified of the caregiver. that causes that. What do you do when the thing that causes disorganization is that the child is afraid of their attachment figure? So the attachment mechanism goes off, which causes you to feel compelled to seek proximity and safety from your caregiver, but the caregiver is the source of the fearfulness. And so the attachment system goes off because you're terrified of the caregiver, and then the fight or flight system goes off and cancels the attachment system. But then the child is left with the perception that nobody will help them. And that level of distress in children can easily take on a do or die expression because they can't care for themselves. They can't survive without somebody taking care of them, which is where that comes from. We've talked for a long time tonight. So the idea then, of course, is you enter into the process of repairing your attachment conditioning. Still the three-pillar approach, the ideal parent figure protocol to help remap the early childhood conditioning. In our system, the meditation strategies that develop mentalizing and emotional regulation. And then the third is the learning about secure relational systems. And that we do in our classroom setting, teaching about the dynamics of secure functioning relationships, the value of epistemic trust, how to develop it and maintain it. So wherever you start out, whatever family system you grew up in and whatever skill set you inherited from them, these are all skills that can be learned, that can be developed, so that you can then move toward secure functioning relationships. I often talk about it as gathering what's left and making a life out of that. Because sometimes the harrowing nature of childhood can cause you to lose or not develop and not be able to develop some aspects of it. But we gather what's left and we develop that, and it becomes the foundation for supporting our exploration, which then becomes the source of meaningfulness in life, the richness of that fulfilling life that we can lead, really, wherever we start out. Is that making sense? I'm looking at your distressed faces, and I'm always hoping that we'll end up in a hopeful place. We learned all of this dutifully, like good children in our family systems, what our family systems had to teach us. And then we took it out onto the big playing field of life, and we did our best. And depending on how it went, we can then see where we might need to develop some skills we don't have and abandon some skills we do have in order to make the life that we're leading something that we value, to come into a place where we really enjoy ourselves, we delight in ourselves, we love ourselves, and abandoned all of those critical voices that we translated into our relationship with ourselves. And to really, really touch into the nature of who we are and what it is that matters to us, and abandon the comparison to what is considered important or valuable in our family systems, and also in the larger culture, and really head off in the path of ourselves and becoming the very best at it that we can be, very best at being ourselves that we can be, whatever that is. We live in such a hard time around these narrow ideas of what it is to be a man or what it is to be a woman and what it is that has value in our culture. It's primitive. It's really quite primitive, that modeling. So we should go for the nuance. We should go for the authenticity of who we are. We should say who we are, not in a mean, harsh way, but in a way that is within the agreements that we have with other people, so that they know us, and then we can pick who among the people that really know us that we want to be in relationship to. Of course, if you never tell anybody who you are, you never know whether they want you. So you never really have the capacity to choose from the people that are interested in you and want you. You have the people that like who you're pretending to be, but at a certain point you won't be able to do it anymore, because it's so lonely. How much loneliness can we manage? And you're beautiful. Why not tell people that, right? Shall we do a very short period of meditation? What would you like to do? Apparently, it's do nothing. uh, it's an interesting thought. Is there anything to promote authenticity? And I didn't quite read your hand signal, Christian. What was it?
Oh, I was just counting on my fingers.
Oh. We could do some noting feeling states technique. That's usually pretty good. So let's do a little concentration and then we'll do some noting feelings. So go ahead and settle in. Okay, let go of the meditation. Comments, questions about that? All right. Let's see here. We have not had a lot of people register for the workshop this weekend, so I'm going to guess that it's not going to happen. Which means that the new level 2 that's starting on Tuesday, the 21st, October 21st, is going to happen. So if you're interested in joining a level 2 class, that's happening then. Tuesday's 4:30 to 6:30. Kaleidoscope is on Friday the 24th at 11 a.m. I'm going to do a workshop on the 7th of November. Not sure what the topic is yet, but we'll talk about something. I'm doing on Saturday, November 15th, our annual family archaeology half day, which is about going home for the holidays and how you can use the occasion to explore your attachment conditioning. What else? Then we're rapidly coming toward the end of the year. I think that's about it. Oh, I see. We're going to have a virtual retreat at the end of the year, December 29th to January 2nd. It's going to be from 7 in the morning until 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. So if you're interested in a virtual retreat, take a look at that. I offer the teaching freely, but I do hope that if you're able to make a donation, you will. There's a link on the website to make a donation. Really appreciate your practice. Thank you. And Mudit, would you hang out for a minute so we can do our scheduling? It's gotten too long in email. Thank you.
Oh yeah, the 10 a.m. works on the 17th.
It no longer works. How
Damn
about
it.
11,
On the
17th? I have 11 or 4 p.m. on that day.
yeah, 11 should be good.
Okay. It's been
Also, did Mettagroup become a nonprofit?
no.
501, okay.
Why?
Because my company has double matching, which is gonna start in December or November. So I just wondering if
Oh,
I can use that feature somehow.
it matches a
3
donation.
times, which is insane, but only
Oh,
for 1 month a year.
oh,
But I don't know how to do that if it's
um, maybe we will have an option by then.
or any neighboring donation company that I can give. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's what we would try to do. I don't think I can pull mine out of mothballs, but we'll see. Good.
Okay.
See you later.
Thank you, George.
Bye.